bit?
Some of that stuff I don't mind.
You get bored tonight? You just get out?
There you go, yeah. Lend it to you to wipe your nose. How are you? I tell you what, there's nothing that beats a hard copy. Particularly when they're real long items.
I'll call the meeting to order. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the city in which we live. Guide us this evening as we make our decisions. In Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
This is the regular meeting of February the 28th, 2023 of the Newnan City Council. You have the minutes of the regular meeting of February the 14th, 2023 before you. I'll entertain a motion. We adopt those minutes.
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. We adopt the minutes as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. The next item on the agenda tonight would be the introduction of our Newnan Youth Council members, and Ms. Jenkins is going to do that.
Okay. We have with us Nisha Reddy, sophomore Northgate, who stands with Jenna Moeller, sophomore Northgate, Reese Palakas, senior Heritage, Lauren Johnson, senior Heritage, and we have Liliana Maxfield, senior East Coweta, and Isabella Rodriguez, senior East Coweta.
Okay.
We're clear about it.
Thank you for being here tonight. More importantly, thank you for your service on the council. We really appreciate your participation. The next items on the agenda tonight are the appointments to boards and commissions. The first item is Cultural Arts Commission, Mr. Gion.
Next meeting, please.
All right, thank you. The next is Mr. Shell, Keeping It Beautiful.
I'll put it on the next agenda.
All right, thanks. Mr. Critco, Parks Commission.
Next agenda as well, please.
Thanks. I'll continue the trend. Next agenda for my appointment. Mr. Critco, Tree Commission.
Next one as well, please.
Mr. Alexander, Tree.
I'll continue the tradition
All right. Mr. Gion, make us perfect, I guess.
Well, I will say somebody has popped up on the radar, so that's possible. Next meeting, I would have someone. How about
All
that?
right, that's fine. Thank you. So all of them on the next agenda.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, so our next item on the agenda is reports from city manager. Anything?
No, sir, Mayor.
Tonight. Also, on the reports from the mayor this evening, you have in your agenda a report from the Ayrshire Fiddle Orchestra Guiding Committee, Organizational Committee, for funds to take care of that project for this summer. As you all know, our sister city is Ayr, Scotland, and we are hosting the Ayrshire Fiddle Orchestra for our 25th anniversary of our sister city relationship. And you see before you that budget that has been put together by the committee. This is a subset of the Newnan Cultural Arts Commission that has the Ayrshire Fiddle Orchestra Committee together. These are the numbers that they've put up with based on previous visits and also actual expenditures that we expect that this event will incur. I will say that the county is also party to these expenses, not these expenses, but they have their own set of expenses that they are contributing because they are also a sister city or sister county with the county of South Ayrshire. So I'm looking for approval tonight of our budget. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. We approve the budget for the Ayrshire Fiddle Orchestra visit this July. Any discussion?
I have a quick
Yes,
question.
sir.
I'm just looking at the catering costs, just for one day's catering. It just seemed a little on the steep side. Is there an explanation?
Unfortunately, there's not. We have gone out and actually priced that. And it's the day of the, if I'm not mistaken, it's the day of the orchestra. It's the day of the event. And it has just gotten expensive.
I understand.
I wish we could have done better.
Absolutely. No, appreciate it.
It is
Thank
what
you.
it is. Thank you. Have a motion second. Any other questions or comments? Pardon me?
I said in Kizzy.
Mhm.
This is not just, handful of adults, this is the kids.
Everybody.
Right.
Yep.
So I'll call the question. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. This next item is under new business. This is a request from Robert Bergman on behalf of Thomas Land Development LLC for 8.44 acres located on Ashley Park at 440 Noonan Crossing Bypass to file a new rezoning application after 6 months after the denial, previous denial, instead of the standard 12 months. Ms. Donovan, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well, thank you very much.
Good.
As you recall, back in August of 2022, Ashley Park had submitted a rezoning for MXD development that would allow them to increase the number of residential units. That was subsequently denied. The city ordinance requires them to wait 12 months before coming back unless council agrees to allow them to come back after 6. They're wanting to file a new rezoning application where they add just retail and no residential units. So they're asking you all to consider allowing them to come back to file that after 6, which it has been, instead of waiting the 12.
Is there a motion to approve the request?
So moved. Second.
Motion to approve the request is presented. Any discussion on this?
Just a quick question,
Sure.
and just for everybody, so that everybody understands. This is so that they would start the process over, go through the planning commission again, and then come to us again?
Yes, sir. This is just allowing them to file the application instead of waiting 12 months. They will go through that entire process.
All right, thank you.
All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Ms. Donovan. Then, under unfinished business tonight, Mr. Smith has for us a public hearing. This is consideration of several zoning and subdivision regulation text amendments to Articles 2, 3, 4, and 13 of the zoning ordinance and Section 11 of the subdivision regulations. Mr. Smith, how are you?
I'm fine. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you, you have the result of 2 planning commission meetings. Back in October, we introduced some of these items to you as part of what we normally do on an annual basis, which is to go through the zoning and subdivision regulations to look at things that need to be streamlined, cleaned up, or updated. And a couple things that caught our eye and caught the attention of the commission was, number one, the issue of cargo containers. Past 2 years, we've gotten more requests from various entities to use cargo containers as residential accessory structures, as residential primary structures, and as commercial principal structures. Our zoning ordinance doesn't really speak to it in depth or in a real good detail, so what we're trying to do this evening is put a placeholder in the zoning ordinance for these structures. Do not allow them in residential, and if they're going to be a principal use in a commercial structure, to engage the public. One of the things we encountered was a gentleman who wanted to use one on Jefferson Street, and the public was a little upset about it, and they wanted to be involved. For those that are commercial, that want to use it as a accessory structure, a storage building, there are some stipulations in place existing in our zoning ordinance as far as how big it can be, where it can be located. It has to be screened, and we're just saying, yes, those can be allowed if they follow those restrictions. So that's what these changes are designed to do. Beyond that, the other changes on the use table, it just takes townhouses from being an allowed use in what we call the RUI district, which is historic and infill, to a special exception, which would involve a public hearing. Reason being is townhomes are considered multifamily in our zoning ordinance. Currently, duplexes are also considered multifamily. A duplex in the zoning district would also necessitate a public hearing for a special exception. We want to follow suit. We've had several requests in the wake of the tornado to look at independent investors that want to do townhomes in RUI zone districts that were impacted. And we also want to, before we go and approve these, we think the public needs to be involved, especially when a multifamily with high density, high traffic can impact an existing neighborhood. Those are some of the changes. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have about any of the others or some of the ones we've covered.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes, sir. Thank you for your work on this. When you say a public hearing, would they be coming to city council to get approval?
Now, it would be involving either the Board of Zoning Appeals or the Planning Commission, depending on what the zoning is. But in the case of the townhomes, those would be the Board of Zoning Appeals, since they would be in the RUI zoning, and that's heard by the Board of Zoning Appeals.
What was it before?
It was just an allowed use.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So let me just continue that line.
Yes, sir.
Of question, if you don't mind.
No,
When you say the public being involved, that's what you mean by they have to come to the Board of Zoning Appeals or to the Planning Commission, and that is an advertised public hearing
It is,
before either one of those two bodies.
correct.
Do any of these ever come to the council for approval?
At this point, it's not written that way. You're certainly welcome to make that suggestion. We could have them come to you as opposed to going to the Board of Zoning Appeals, but the board typically does handle these special exceptions. But there are circumstances where you would hear those. If you would like to hear them, we can make that change.
So, again, it's not a zoning change, it's a special exception to that zoning, that existing zone.
Correct. It says it's possible, but it's going to have some sort of quasi-judicial authority approve it.
Council?
I think, I'd like to, if we're gonna have that, like, public hearing, why not bring it to the council?
Okay.
One of my concerns is when you bring it to the Board of Zoning Appeals, they meet at 10 o'clock in the morning. Most people, if they have a problem with it, they're at work.
We can do that.
I'd like to see it come before council.
If that's council's pleasure, we can make that change.
Council?
So go to BZA or planning first and then come to us second.
No, sir.
No.
You're asking to
Just
circumvent that, come straight to you.
Planning Commission, then us, or just straight to us?
Straight to you is what I'm under hearing.
One thing we may want to discuss, and we may want to maybe consider delaying this for further conversation and review. If you look at the way the ordinance is crafted, the only special exception that actually appears in front of this body, if I'm not mistaken, are special exceptions that are considered developments of regional impact. All other special exceptions are actually considered by the board.
Telecommunication towers are also
Yes.
considered by this.
So I think we want to look and make certain we're consistent for the justification and the reasonings of why certain special exception applications would come to this body and not that particular body. If you're following what I'm trying to say here.
You understand?
Well, there are numerous
Numerous.
special exceptions
Numerous,
that the
that's right.
BZA hears. This is just adding one at this point in time.
Okay, it
So-
might be helpful if you get us a list of what, clearly, we're not going to take action on this tonight. I haven't even asked if there's any member of the public that wants to come forward to speak to this. This is a public hearing that we've opened on this, and Mr. Smith has given his report. I don't know that you're finished, are you?
As far as I'm concerned,
I'm not
yes.
trying to cut you off.
No, please do.
Okay, okay. Is there anyone here who's attended the meeting that wants to speak to the issue of the consideration of zoning and subdivision regulation text amendments to Article 2, 3, 4, and 13, and of the subdivision regulations? Okay, seeing no one come
Okay,
forward.
I've got a few more questions too.
Sure, we've got more questions. So I'm going to close the public hearing at this time then, since no one come forward, and open it up for questions or comments.
Okay, I had a question about the containers. I knew that you all had on here disallowed them in residential areas, though I have seen a container.
They're currently not disallowed. They can be used in construction situations where they're using for tools and material, but currently the zoning ordinance does not stipulate is an allowed or not allowed use. What we're saying is we would like to make it prohibited.
Okay. And I guess that's what I'm getting at, is that I've actually seen pretty good use of one as a backyard office. And,
Well, if this goes into effect, we would have to take appropriate enforcement action.
so even if it's already there,
I don't believe it would be considered mobile and temporary. I don't believe it would be considered a grandfather.
well, that would be a problem, because I would hate for somebody who has spent money on putting a container in their yard as a accessory building, and then we come back and say, well, now that we've made it, prohibited it, now you've got to move your building.
Well, it also
When
could
it
be,
was
well,
permitted
now,
before.
if it's an accessory structure of a certain size, it's supposed to have a permit. My presumption is because we weren't aware of it, it probably has no permit, so therefore it would be an illegal accessory structure.
I'll let y'all deal with that. But, 'cause that part I don't know. But the whole point of me bringing it up is actually, I thought it was a very nice addition to their structure. It was very easy to get to and do what they need to do. And so I'm concerned that, I guess I want to know the reasoning why, you said, hey, I can understand why we don't necessarily want them as a primary structure, but an accessory structure like a guest house or an office in your backyard, why not?
Well, depending on the situation, I mean, you got a lot that's 7,500 square feet. We have a 3,000 square foot home, and you want to put a 600, 800 square cargo container in your backyard.
So you're assuming the big ones. I'm talking about the little ones.
There's little ones, but we've seen all sizes.
Uh-huh.
There's one on Farmer Street, I think, right now that's of the regular size that you would use on the back of a train. So the concern that we talked with the Planning Commission and some of the other concerns that we were discussing through these meetings was we felt like that these were a detriment to the existing neighborhood, the ones that we've seen, the ones that have been submitted for the way they've been used, and they don't necessarily are maintained. I mean, you would have to necessarily put in maintenance requirements because you can put one down that may not have been painted, maybe it's rusted, and then you're going to have to go into the enforcement action to make them maintain it. So it would just seem like the sense of the commission was to move with not allowing them in residential districts.
Okay. You also added some language about recreational vehicles in here.
We did.
And shelters. What was the thought process behind that?
The recreational vehicle was a result of an extended code enforcement case that took place last year where we had someone come onto a vacant piece of land and basically just put in a camper and decide to live out of it. And it dragged to the courts for a long time before it was finally adjudicated. That's the reason for that. And you'll note that we did put in there an emergency measure where this body can approve those to be used in certain situations. The transitional shelter was to include supportive housing as a specific type of transitional shelter along with maternity houses, group homes, homeless shelters that are not currently defined or listed in our existing ordinance as transitional shelters. It was to further define and clarify what we mean by that term.
Okay. You also have added language under recreational vehicles about a section that you don't include in here.
Article 7 for recreational, that is an existing section. That's just a reference point to go back to Article 7. You all passed an ordinance a couple years ago about where recreational vehicles can be parked in a neighborhood. They have to be in a side or backyard and among some other stipulations that you all have previously
Okay, I
approved.
remember that too.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I just piggyback on that real fast? Talking about the recreational vehicles, specifically it says equipped with wheels to facilitate movement from place to place. Is there any way we can potentially add verbiage in there about if they remove the wheels, now they could argue that it's no longer a recreational vehicle? You know, put it up on blocks. Or has the ability to have wheels, or, you know, somehow phrase it so that it's not just a camper on blocks now.
We could put either equipped or not equipped with wheels.
Anyway, that sounds like it's kind of parsing it, but.
Yeah, sure.
And then, if you, on Article 4 regarding the group developments, could you set me through the whole thing about the multifamily apartment residential use?
Yes. So right now, in the current zoning ordinance, it just basically says a group development shall be consist of 2 or more buildings containing a residential use, commercial, and industrial use. The intention of that was for multifamily apartment. What has happened is, as a loophole, we have a residential development that's taken advantage of that and gone by traditional subdivision methods, and they're doing basically just individual single-family detached as a group build-to-rent community. I don't think that was the intent of this section. I don't think that's what this body intended. So this is to correct that mistake.
So what exactly does this do then?
What this says is that a group development, which is basically a land with a bunch of buildings on it, can either apply for apartments, commercial, or industrial, and that's it.
So they can't necessarily apply as single ownership.
It can't be individual single-family detached that's under build-to-rent. It can't be quadplexes. It can't be duplexes. It can't be townhomes. It could be multifamily apartment only, the way it was intended originally.
So hold on.
And that's only 2 acres minimum, down to 2 acres minimum.
Right, 2 acres may be considered, right.
At least 2 acres.
At least 2
At
acres.
least 2
Yeah,
acres.
so it's got to be 2 acres, but
2 acres
for
or
the most
more.
part, you're not going to have, you know, anything else less than 2 acres, you're going to be subdividing or it won't be usable for any sort of multifamily purpose anyway. Very seldom, very rare. Or it would go through some type of proper subdivision, either condominium or fee simple townhome.
So they'd still have to come through the normal process.
Yes, sir. Development, site development, everything would come through that process.
So this is to prevent someone from getting an RU2 type zoning on a piece of property and then divide it up into townhomes.
Well, what we're trying to do is.
Single-family detached houses.
Yes, and that, and going in with the auspices that we're gonna build a condominium-style, single-family detached neighborhood and turn around, just make it all build to rent and bypass certain provisions of our regulations.
Mr. Phillips?
I had 23 years here, and this group development option, I think Ms. Donovan can testify to this, was utilized back with the Target National Park Shopping Center. It's where that provision was actually put in. But under my 23 years, up until the last year or so, we've never even seen the argument or the provision of trying to develop under the group development. It's my opinion, just my personal opinion, that because of the other tools that we have available, such as the mixed-use ordinances, the plan development options, I believe that you could actually delete the entire group development out of the ordinance and not even have to worry about regulating it that way. That's my personal opinion. I know that probably wasn't presented at the planning commission that way, but again, you're probably in a position if you're not going to act on it tonight. That's maybe something we could consider to clarify it. Mr. Donovan, have you seen it utilized in your almost 20 years other than the last 6 or 8 months? No.
Well, okay, so unless there are any other questions or comments, that we need staff to come back to us as we discuss this for our next meeting, I'm just going to call a question then, or ask for a motion then to continue this to, have you got, I'm just asking on timing. Have you got timing, or do you just want to come back at our second meeting?
We'll just come back, well, we'll come back at the next meeting in March. I mean, you're looking at a couple things. One is you're looking at considering having city council hear request on
Okay.
townhomes and the RUI. Secondly, you want to look at the consideration of group development. That language, I think, is what I'm understanding, and then
We'll
consideration
probably
of.
split them up into smaller items too. That way you're taking,
Right,
instead of all the items at one time.
there's your time.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so motion to second to continue this to our first meeting in March.
Okay.
Is that correct?
All right.
Everybody agree?
Yep.
Okay. I'll call the question then. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion carried. The next item is a public hearing also, and I'm going to need to recuse myself, and that I have a business relationship with the property owner, so I will remove myself to the back room.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is item J, the public hearing on the annexation rezoning request, annexation 2022-05 by Jeff Anthony on behalf of Lennar Georgia LLC. 31 plus or minus acres located at 521 Lower Fayetteville Road, tax parcel number 08750110001, requesting a zoning of PDR, which is the Planned Development Residential, in consideration of the ordinance. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing and hear from staff. Thank you, Ms. Donovan.
Yes, thank you. The site, it was the location of the old Caldwell Tanks building on Lower Fayetteville Road. The original request was to develop a 148-unit subdivision designed to accommodate 90 single-family detached homes and 58 townhouse units. Since the Planning Commission meeting, however, that has been amended to 140 units with 83 single-family homes and 57 townhouses. In addition, the tract to the north side of Lower Fayetteville Road will be limited to 6 single-family detached residential units. The petitioner is proposing a minimum lot size of 5,720 square feet for the detached product with a minimum floor area of 2,200 square feet. And this product is very similar to the homes being built in Braymore and Calumet, if you're familiar with that development. The applicant will have a presentation tonight where they will show you some elevations as well as inside finishes and so forth for the product that they're proposing. The average lot size for the townhome lots would be 2160 with 1,700 square feet of heated floor area. Average prices would be in the low 300s for the townhouses product and the 400,000s for the detached units. Amenities will include a walking trail, a large grass lawn area for free play, and a covered pavilion. Staff has completed an assessment of each of the 8 required standards, and I'm going to give you a quick summary of each. The tracts are primarily surrounded by residential zone properties and residential uses. The adjacent parcel to the east that fronts on Lower Fayetteville Road is currently undeveloped but is zoned commercial. Across Lower Fayetteville Road are the Vinings at Noonan Lakes Apartment Complex, and then all other tracts surrounding the site belong to various residential subdivision. In terms of the zoning designations, the adjacent tracts to the west of the large subject tract is located in the county and is what's called Hidden Lake subdivision and is zoned RC, rural conservation, that has a density of 0.86 units per acre. Lake Shore, which abuts the tract to the south and southeast, is zoned RS15, which allows 2.5 units per acre, and the commercial tract to the east is vacant and zoned CCS. Across Lower Fayetteville Road, where the smaller portion is, there are two subdivisions it abuts, Madison Park and Madison Park at Noonan Lakes. Madison Park is zoned RU7, which allows 4 units per acre. Madison Park at Noonan Lakes is a planned development with a variety of pods having varying densities. The pod that abuts the subject tract, however, is the site of the Vinings at Noonan Lakes Apartment Complex, which has an overall density of roughly 10 units per acre. So the proposed project would have an overall density of 4.6 units per acre based on a total of 146 units, which includes those across the street. There are a variety of residential uses along Lower Fayetteville Road, including apartments, townhomes, single-family detached dwellings. The applicant is proposing a mixture of uses, which staff feels would be suitable given the mixture of residential uses and densities in this area. In addition, the project would serve as a transition between the lower density single-family subdivisions and the higher density apartments. And also, the townhouse would not be abutting any of the existing subdivisions as they'd be located next to commercial zone property. Will the proposed use have an adverse impact on adjacent or nearby property? The greatest impact from this development will be traffic. Per the trip generation report, the development at full build-out will generate roughly 1,307 new trips per weekday. It is anticipated there will be 92 additional trips at AM peak hour and 121 additional trips at PM peak hour. The applicant is currently working on traffic impact statement to determine potential traffic impacts on the driveways and the public streets between Greason Trail and Noonan Crossing Bypass. Once that statement is received, the city will determine what, if any, mitigation it should take place given the timeline related to the Lower Fayetteville Road project that has already been approved. The applicant has proposed a 25-foot buffer between his development and the existing residences. In most cases, the city does not require a buffer between single-family residential uses. However, we do require a 10-foot densely planted buffer between PDR and single-family. So the proposed buffer would actually be 15 more than what's required. Could it be used as currently zoned? The property is zoned RC in the county, which would allow up to 50 lots if the site receives CSD approval. The property could be used as currently zoned. However, the development costs may keep that project from being feasible at those density levels. Would the project cause an excessive or burdensome use of public facilities? All of the service providers have reviewed the development, indicated that there would be some impact, but it would not be excessive. Staff did conduct a physical impact analysis of the impact on revenues and expenditures. Per our calculations, based on the 2022 budget, the anticipated annual expenditure would be $116,277, with the anticipated annual revenues being $111,518. So that'd be roughly a $5,000 difference per year. However, the project would also bring in upfront revenues, impact fees, permits, those kinds of things, of around $337,378. In terms of the comprehensive plan, the properties are outside of the city limits and therefore weren't considered in our comprehensive plan. However, the county's comprehensive plan shows these areas as priority development character area and complete community on its current character area map. And based on the description of these areas, staff does feel it would be consistent with the county's comprehensive plan. Is the proposed use consistent with the purpose and intent of the proposed zoning district? PDR allows residential development in a manner that advocates innovation in design and layout through a specific plan, which is a condition of zoning. In this case, the applicant has provided a concept plan with a mixture of residential uses, open space, and development requirements, as well as a variety of housing, elevation, and specific amenities, so therefore it would be consistent. Would the proposed use be supported by new or changing conditions not anticipated by the comprehensive plan? The subject tract, again, was not included in our comprehensive plan, but the majority of the adjacent tracts within the city limits are shown as future built community and planned development. If brought into the city limits, the properties would most likely be shown as future planned development, as well as based on the city's future land use definitions. In addition, the county updated their comprehensive plan, including their future development map, and shows this area as a priority development character area. And as you can see, this property is pretty much surrounded by city limits, and that the only area is where it abuts Hidden Lakes, that it actually touches the county. Does the proposed use reflect a reasonable balance between the promotion of the public health, safety, morality, or general welfare and the right to unrestricted use of property? Based on the residential uses in the area, the mixture of densities, the location of the townhouse units next to the commercial property, and the expanded buffer, staff does feel that the project would reflect that balance. There will be additional traffic, but again, the city and engineer has asked for a traffic impact statement to be provided, and that should determine any mitigation efforts that has to be taken. In addition, the service providers have indicated that they will be able to serve the development with their existing resources. So in summary, staff found that the development met 6 of the 8 standards. In accordance with our annexation law, the city notified the county of the annexation once city council decided to move forward with the application. The county reviewed the application. They advised the city of their intent to file a notice of objection based on 3 criteria. They felt that there was a substantial change in intensity of use, a significant net cost of infrastructure, and the use differing substantially from the existing use suggested by the property by this county's ordinances. So the Department of Community Affairs was asked to appoint an arbitration panel to hear the objection. The panel was appointed, but prior to the actual hearing, one of the panelists withdrew, which resulted in the arbitration panel not having the requisite number of members to move forward, and as such, the arbitration ended. The county did ask for 7 conditions to be placed on the subject property if the city decides to approve the annexation. Those are included in your packet, as well as the applicant's responses to those suggested conditions. So in terms of the tree management plan, it's my understanding that the applicant is currently working with Mike Furbish, city landscape architect, regarding buffers and ensuring ample room for tree planting is on the townhome lots. At their December 2022 meeting, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and voted unanimously to deny the annexation request. Should the council, however, decide to approve the request, staff suggests the following conditions: that the project will be consistent with the concept plan, density, project data, amenities, square footages, and elevations provided as part of the application, that the development will utilize an HOA to ensure the amenity areas, common spaces, stormwater management pond and buffers are properly maintained, that the developer will mitigate any traffic impacts the city engineer determines are warranted based on the traffic impact statement and timeline for the Lower Fayetteville Road project, that not more than 20% of the development will be used for rental properties, with the restriction being included in the HOA covenants and restrictions, and that the 2.35 acre parcel shall be limited to 6 single-family detached residential homes. And that's the report of the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Donovan.
I have some questions.
All right, so, go ahead.
I have some questions. Ms. Donovan, is it my understanding that they haven't come to an agreement on the tree landscape?
They are currently working with Mike Furbish on that to make sure that they meet the requirements. Whatever they would submit will have to meet his requirements, but they're still working on that.
Okay. And with the reduction in the amount of units, I think it was, you said a total of 8, what happened with that? I guess now it's green space, or what happened to those lots?
They actually widened the lots and so forth to make
Okay.
them larger lots, so they could have a larger product on
You
there.
did say that, thank you.
Ms. Tracy, did the Planning Commission have the lot size before them? In other
They
words,
did.
the driveways were widened, so is there any reason why they voted no? Was there any explanation as?
They did not like the product that was considered at that time, so they've gone back and changed that product, and that's what they brought to you on.
So
that.
the Planning Commission didn't see the change of the product, is that what you're saying?
That's
Okay. One of the things that is kind of a personal pet peeve of mine right at the moment, when I see on 2-lane roads and I see the right in, right out on 2 lanes, we're having some issues on Lower Fayetteville roads, so I would hope that when they look at mitigating traffic, that right in, right out on that specific exit, I think it is would be the first one as you move towards the Noonan bypass. Anyway, is there any way to take another hard look at that as well? I mean, I think up front, personally, would be helpful, because we're just going to encourage people to turn left, turn right, left into it, turn right out of it, or turn left out of it, however, to avoid time. So that's something I want to take a look at.
Yeah, we can get the city engineer to take a look at
yeah,
that. He's
that-
working
that
on
would
the
be- that
design
would
of
be
those
great.
improvements.
That'd be great.
Excuse me, go through that, what you're talking about again. I know it's right in, I heard that part, but what were you talking about, the left turn? You saying not allowed or do allowed?
Well, oftentimes, in my experience recently, over the last, for a while now, when you have a right in and right out, I understand the concept of what it's designed to do. Oftentimes, you'll see a person that is supposed to turn right will turn left back into the traffic. And I'm getting a few nodding of heads anyway, but that's what you see. And then also, coming in, a lot of people on the opposite way, they'll be turning left into what's supposed to be the right in. So it can create some issues, particularly when we're talking about additional traffic, et cetera. So on a 2-lane road, that's what it is.
I understand, like that standard raised little triangle thing is just not enough. There has to be something.
Never high enough. It needs to be about 6 feet tall, I believe it would be appropriate. And
I think they did some redesign on some stuff out there
Right,
on Lord Fayetteville that's helped some of that.
All right, just to keep on track, I actually have one quick question, just on why you're up here. The county asked for 50-foot buffers for both landscaping and on the frontage road there, both buffers. They said they did 5 feet. What is the city requirements for buffers for both of those?
Again, between single-family and PDR, it'd be 15 feet, and they're offering 25, which is actually 10 feet, or 10 feet more than what would be required.
Okay, thank you. All right. So,
This is a public hearing.
yeah. So we've heard the planning commission's report. I'd entertain a motion to accept the planning commission report at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? This is strictly
We don't do that yet.
just to accept the planning
Okay.
commission report.
All right.
Is there a problem with that, Mr. Sears?
Normally, you would hold the public hearing and hear from the public before you go to the secretary.
Okay. We'll move along then. All right. At this point, we'll hear from the applicant. Whoever's speaking for the applicant, you have 15 minutes. As this is our standard protocol, we do 15 minutes for and 15 minutes for anybody opposed to the development.
Right. Well, then I will try to take 2 to 3 minutes if I can, just to keep things moving along. But Tracy did a phenomenal job of giving a quick summary there. But the biggest thing tonight, what I want to get across to everyone here, and
Just real fast, if you say your name.
oh, I'm sorry, yeah, Jeff Anthony with Lennar.
Thank you.
So the last time I was here, the Planning Commission made some suggestions. And so part of these suggestions, which you can see here today, is we certainly listened to those suggestions. We reduced the number of homes. Previously, I think the biggest issue that the commission had was the affordable entry-level housing, the product type in general. And so one of the comments was, could we go with the same product that we built at Braemore, which is just up the road in the city? And so we took that into consideration, and the answer is yes. And so what we'll be doing here is the same product in terms of the single family as the Braemore community, which we had a tremendous amount of success in. So we'll be reproducing that product on the single family side. Furthermore, the townhomes had a single car. They were smaller in square footage with only a single car garage. And they did not like that. And so we went back to the drawing board. So we're now doing a 2-car garage home along with some more architectural features, more brick, craftsman style on both the single family and the townhomes. So what you'll see as we kind of step through the product here is you'll see a lot more character to the homes. They're larger in size, and hence the price point goes up. And so we did certainly listen to all those suggestions. I think that was probably the biggest concern. As was mentioned earlier, the home sites also did get larger, so we lost some density. And we're catering more to a move-up buyer instead of a entry-level or affordable type housing. Along the front entrance, this was touched on just a minute ago, in terms of a buffer along the front entrance, we would agree to also place a berm along the front entrance, and that will help provide a little bit more of a buffer there. In terms of the additional buffers around the exterior of the property, we would go to that 25-foot buffer, which is over and above what is called for. And then additionally, in the last meeting that we had, there were some concerns. There was 2 home sites, or two homes in a neighboring community to the west, that we would certainly entertain providing some additional landscaping buffer there to help maybe buffer the space between the new community that we'll be building and then the folks there to our west. I know that was a concern of theirs. If they're here to speak tonight, maybe that will help there. The amenity area will be about approximately about a 1.5 acre amenity area that will consist of a pavilion, walking trail, and a large open recreational field. We'll also, another concern was, will these be rental homes? We would agree to reduce the rental cap from 20% down to only 10% may be rented. And then furthermore, kind of one of my last points was we feel like we've done a great service for the city in terms of the existing, or what was existing at the time, the Caldwell Tank industrial large eyesore of a building that was there previously. We did go ahead and put out approximately $200,000 ahead of time and went ahead and demolished the building. So that's that's gone now, and so we feel that was a good service for the city. So with that, I'd open it up to any questions or concerns.
Go ahead. I have a question.
Couple questions, Mr. Anthony. Height of that berm, what is the height of that berm?
Good.
Because they can really differ.
Yeah, I think the purpose of that berm would be to shield the first floor best we can, so when they walk out onto their patios, they wouldn't have direct access from the main floor. Second level, that would probably not. So if I had to guess, and I can email this to you, but I would probably say it would be at least 6 feet.
Okay, all right. And my next question is, I think you all proffered 20% on rental. Are y'all willing to proffer less than that?
Yeah.
You just,
10%.
yeah.
10%, okay.
Yep.
All right, I missed that.
Yep.
Thank you. That's the number I was looking for. Thank you.
My question was on the driveways. I know you're going double wide, which is great. Maybe I missed it, but what is the depth of those driveways? In other words, are they capable of handling 4 cars in a driveway, or stacked, or are they just squeezing in 1 car
Now,
up to the
typically,
garage?
it'll fit 1 car, and then, of course, 2 cars in total, side by
Right.
side, but not 4. They would not be deep enough for
Okay.
4.
Comfortably squeezed too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question regarding the berm. Would it be possible to scroll that page, I think it's the one with the map that kind of shows the layout of the units with the lower Fayetteville there. But anyways, those yards are very close to the road. There's no berm in it. It's only a 15-foot buffer and a 6-foot berm. Just trying to do some math.
We could also, and we would do this anyway, we would agree to landscape, obviously, on top of the berm. So, if you factor in an additional, probably 4-foot hedge line, 6-foot trees, maybe some arborvitaes or Leland cypress, Lelands probably get too big. But we could certainly look at that if they're, Lelands get very large.
Don't put any Leland cypress up there, they just die.
Yeah,
There's eyesore and they fall.
And they
That's
get-
the worst plant, or
Yeah.
one of the worst plants you could ever put up there.
Yeah, and they get really big. So that's what I'm saying. Arborvitaes kind of accomplish the same thing. They're usually 6 to 8 feet in height. They don't get as wide and as big, and they're a little bit more hardy. They'll last a little longer.
One other quick question was you said you'd limit the development to either hardy, cement fiberboard, brick, or stone. Is that 4 side?
Yeah, so we would have, hardy would be all four sides, and then the fronts would be mixtures of brick, board and batten, shake, that type of craftsman material in the front.
Did you want to show them your elevations in your photo?
Yeah, if we've got it there, maybe 2 or 3 slides down. So this was the Braymore product that we built, so you can see it has a large percentage of brick on the front, and then the balance of it is all cement type siding, the hardy plank. The balance that's on the front, and then the sides and the rear would also be cement type hardy plank.
One other question then is the pedestrian bicycle path you proposed, will that tie into the link at all, or is that just strictly on property?
I think it's on property, yep.
So fairly minimal then?
Fairly minimal, but if there's a place that we need to tie in that ties directly adjacent to our property, we're certainly open to that.
Any other questions? Awesome. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here that would like to speak for the applicant, for this project? All right, seeing no one else, is there anyone here that would like to speak against this project? Anybody from the public? If you would just step forward, state your name, please, for the record. And again, everybody for this side will have 15 minutes as well.
My name's Frank Stripling, 4th generation Noonan. Grew up on Jackson Street, and first resident in Hidden Lake subdivision, which is adjacent to this. I've been there for 31 years this May. Am I allowed to ask a question about the map that we just saw for clarity? If you could go back to the layout, please. The green section across Lower Fayetteville, is that included in the density, or is that, I think in the council meeting you said it was owned by a separate company. Is that true?
No, it's all owned by the same owner.
Okay, just for, real fast, just for a point of order here, the questions are addressed to council,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm new to this, I apologize.
and then the staff can answer that as needed.
It is currently owned right now by Caldwell Tanks. They own both sides of the road, but the development would actually be, this group is developing on the south side, and then there would be 6 single-family lots up on that side. And that condition is one of the conditions to limit it to 6 single-family homes for the portion across Lower Fayetteville Road.
So Ms. Dunn, while you're up here, just for maybe clarification, those 6 lots on the north side, is there a developer identified for that? Or is this just a blanket rezoning and whatever's there will be there?
No, it is not, there is not a developer at this time, but it's part of this planned development residential, so it'd have to meet the minimums and so forth of what's required by this actual PDR zoning.
Sir?
Thank you. Second question I had is, I was here for the Planning Commission, and they basically turned it down, suggested changes or reasons why they didn't like it. Does this not have to go before the Planning Commission once again for scrutiny? No.
No, sir.
So tonight it will be voted on.
Correct.
Thank you. All right, well, my final word is, been there for 30 years. I know that development will come. I don't quite understand why the council's recommended, well, I do understand that they turned it down and it's been amended, but as far as density goes, Lower Fayetteville's busy, and I just hate to see this many more homes placed adjacent to our neighborhood. The growth in our city has been tremendous over the last 10 years. Less density is a better idea in my mind. I'd like to see this be a public park, actually, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Thank you. State your name, please.
Carlos Dislo.
Okay, there's a mic.
Oh, Carlos Dislo. I'm currently a homeowner, and I own a house built by Lennar Georgia Inc. in Braymore. And I just want to place an opinion against the developer, and we've been blindsided by the builder, Lennar Homes. We have 47 homes in our Braymore community. It was an old development, Calumet Parkway, I'm assuming. and then we have a proposed gas station in front of us. We were never given any type of notice or anything from the developer. The city says they sent all of the notices over to Lennar Georgia Inc. I paid $500,000 for this house. I never received anything. It's a nice house, by the way, but other than that, I've received no communication from them. I was supposed to be in this meeting to oppose this gas station that's now going on Calumet and Millard Farmer, and I've received no communication from Lennar Homes whatsoever. And so hopefully it's an opinion for you guys and the council to be very careful who you're approving to build such large homes. And now, if I try to raise my kids around a gas station or alcohol, booze, or anything like that, to be very careful. Mayor Brady is fully aware of it, and we're just very unhappy that that was zoned as commercial land and was rezoned for residential land. It made sense because that would have been considered a buffer. Now Braymore is considered residential, and it's just a mess. And now I'm going to be underwater in my home, over $400,000 in that house, and nothing from Lennar. So just take that with a grain of salt and what you guys do next, but we hope to resolve it with the new developer, Sal, who's creating this lovely Circle K gas station in front of our neighborhood. So, if it means anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak against? Please come forward, state your name.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Nick Polsinelli. My wife and I, Deborah, we just moved into Noonan at the end of September. We were actually the last homeowners of the Braymore community, and I always like to speak to the character and the integrity of Lennar. We were never informed throughout this home buying process, as again, it's a first-time home buyer. A lot of a learning curve, as you all would probably know at this point, that there's a lot to take in, a lot to questions to ask and everything else, but asking if their gas station was being built at the end of my street was not one of those. And so to go through the entire process as a new person from Dallas, Texas, to Georgia, to move into this beautiful community, north of Ashley Park, I mean, just to be a part of a growing city where we want to raise our family. My wife and I just got married 2 years ago. We celebrate our 1 year or 2 year anniversary next month. And so we want to put roots here. We want to grow our family here just like CJ and his family. And now we're looking at what's going on in our neighborhood as first-time homebuyers. It begs the question of the character and the integrity of who you have building another community within your city. There's 10 gas stations within 2 miles of our house. How many more gas stations are needed within this neighborhood? How come that was never expressed to the folks that lived here beforehand and the folks that are living there now? I mean, the city of Noonan is exploding, it's growing, we're excited to be a part of it. But this comes to the leadership of you guys. Everything rises and falls on leadership, everything. And so the choosing of who you guys have building within your community and who you guys have creating new communities is vital, and I work from home. I'm very blessed and lucky to do that. So I see the kids in our neighborhood get dropped off at the corner every day. With the society that we're in right now, I question many things are going on. So hopefully you guys can understand our frustration, our anger, but I really want you guys to take a hard look at who you guys have coming into this community to develop your future, our future as the city of Noonan. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak against? Yes, sir.
My name's Steve Green. I'm a resident of Hidden Lakes. I can give you your impacts on your traffic now. 57 minutes to drive 10 miles from Peachtree City at 5 o'clock. That's the average time. Lower Fayette is backed up past White Oak at this present every day. It's a huge setback in just our quality of life and drive time. We don't live in Atlanta for a reason. We live here to have access in a beautiful community. My other point would be the lake. We have a lake, a 3-acre lake behind the homes. I want to know what kind of impact. It looks like the property line's about 10 feet or so from the lake. I want to know what kind of impact that has on our lake. Now, we take time, we've worked that lake, we've spent money on that lake. I want to know what kind of environmental impact that's going to have as well as your traffic impact. And that's all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's John Ream, and I live in the Lakeshore Development. And my wife and I retired down here in 2018, and it just seems, I know you have to have growth in the community and stuff, but it just seems like there's so much growth going on now. It seems like you've got too much. I mean, we have all the bypass road, we have all that building down there along 85 and stuff, and now we have all the noise from the highway. The trees were a buffer for us at one time, and now we have all that noise. And this doesn't add value to any of us in the neighborhood, in the Lakeshore Development. It's just being too many homes, too much, bringing more stuff into the community. I just think it's not good for us that live there now. And the other thing I was thinking about is with the tank plant that was back there, do you guys know really what's buried back there in that ground? Because we've had people tell us that there's been hazmat people back there, people in hazmat suits searching that ground back there. Is there any risk to anybody in the residential community about any waste that are back in that area or anything? Do you guys know anything about that?
So I will leave that. Mr. Phillips, do you know anything about that? Can you address that at all?
I believe that the site has been mitigated. I'm not completely certain. They may have to actually refer to the property owner or the buyer for the mitigation.
Okay, thank you.
The only other thing, just council, I appreciate you letting me speak here and stuff, but I would just like all you guys to just take in consideration how you'd feel about everything going on if it was in your neighborhood and stuff too. So I just appreciate everything there too, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward and speak against this project? Yes, sir.
My name is Kenneth Woods. It'll be 28 years resident of Coweta County in June. Fourth oldest person in Hidden Lakes subdivision. My big thing is the traffic. He brought up a good point about environmental impact on our lake. We've done a lot of work restocking the lake. I think maybe you should make them test the soil. I mean, if you're going to build homes on an industrial site, not knowing what you're building on, these guys are going through a lot right now, being misled. So you're going to approve to rezone a piece of property and put houses on it for families and not knowing what's in the ground under the house. And as far as traffic, my wife works in Fayetteville. She has to take the longest route home, Georgia 85 to 16 through Sonoy, Turkey Creek, and come up the back way just to avoid all the traffic. So I leave at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't deal with traffic at that time of morning, but by the time I get home, it's bumper to bumper, and on a 2-lane highway like Lower Fayetteville, I don't see how you can justify having that many more cars on that road, as dangerous as it is. But that's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this project? Yes, sir.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Stephen Burton, and I too am a homeowner of Lennar Homes in the Braymore community. This proposed community is very similar to our community in Braymore, even with the same home elevations and the shape of the neighborhood. And I too am very concerned about a gas station being built in the exactly in our neighborhood. To give you an example, when I walk out of my front door, I will be looking at a gas station. It's not turned to a major road as it should be. It's the only entrance is in the entrance of our community. because of this lack of, I'm sorry, it was also understood that a notice about the gas station was sent to Lennar. However, this notice was not delivered to the homeowners. So we had no clue that this gas station was being built until we decided to build a pool. And at that point, someone from the city told us that a gas station was going to be built in our community within the incoming months. Nobody in our community knew about it. So due to the lack of transparency from Lennar, and it just makes Lennar seem shady, which is really, it's very concerning because they're the largest home builder in the nation. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. You come forward, please. State your name. And just for the record, there's about 2.5 minutes left.
Hi, my name is April Robinson. I'm a homeowner in the Lakeshore community. This project right here, we already have a lot of renters, people moving out that's been living in Lakeshore community for a long time that's moving out. My home will sit with these new homes right behind it. We have so many, I'm worried about people moving out and these companies coming in, buying these houses, that's renting all of these houses out now from homeowners that's leaving. It's already congested. You all talked about parking. A lot of cars are gonna be in and out traffic on Lower Fayetteville, coming and going, you know. I want you all to think about people with families and kids, school buses that's picking these kids up, dropping them off, how people have to go to work and the traffic that all of this is gonna impact on our community. I would just want you all to think about it, just like my neighbor said, what if it was your community? What if you all had to go through this, getting new homes? I understand everybody wants a place to stay, but just think about it and consider it. You know, it's already congested. Coweta County is a beautiful county. I love it here. Retired, came here from Chicago. My husband retired, came here from Chicago. I just want you all to think about it and take some consideration. Put yourself in our shoes. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Yes, sir. You have just under a minute.
My name is Joe Emmons. I'm a resident at Hidden Lakes. I spoke last time at the meeting, and I feel about the same way. They've reduced the number of homes by just a couple. I think the 6 acres may have been calculated in this density population possibly, and it probably doesn't make sense to develop anyway over there to put roads in and houses in. But again, I just wanted to let you know I oppose to it. If you would consider that, if that was your neighborhood they're building next to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? The last 30 seconds? All right. Seeing no one else, I'm going to go ahead and close the public meeting at this time. And is there any comments or questions from council?
I have a question.
Real quick.
Yes, sir.
The applicant probably has time for rebuttal.
Yes.
Considering he did not use his complete 15 minutes. So you may want to reopen the public hearing, and I'll ask the applicant if he has anything for rebuttal.
Okay, I'm going to reopen the public hearing. From the applicant, is there anything you'd like to address or rebut?
If you don't want to, I'd like for you to address the land and their concerns with the lake, et cetera, the mediation, et cetera. You really need to address that. Okay.
So I would just say overall, you know, one of the things that's nice about working for Lennar, we have a pretty hefty development department, and we feel like we have great engineers with Rochester and so on. So we're more than happy to be open book with whatever we need to in terms of, you know, making sure that any lakes and so on, that we are not polluting them in any way, that we are not, you know, everything that we will more than happy to provide any hydrology studies, So again, I know, Rochester being one of the bigger engineers in Atlanta as well, Lennar's a big builder. We are not a small builder that's trying to sweep things under the rug. If anything, we try to bring things to light because we too don't want these issues moving forward. And so I guess my rebuttal, or what I would say to, anything that we do from hydrology or, taking water off site, we certainly take every aspect and try to make sure that everything stays clean and, so I guess that's what I would say to that.
So to be clear, I'm hearing you say that you've done all the testing on that land that you feel necessary to move forward with your project.
100%, absolutely.
That'd be safe to say?
Yep.
So just to make sure, both for the hazmat that was brought up, there is no hazmat at all on that property.
So anything, and again, Lennar being a big company, whether it's this site or any other site, they don't allow us to comment on anything in terms of what we call a phase one or an environmental study. But we certainly are extremely, extremely thorough in what we do in our soil studies. Extremely thorough. And if there's anything that would put us into harm's way or other folks, that's not something we want to be a part of. So, but yes, we've done our phase one and our environmental studies on the site.
Yeah, not to mention you wouldn't be able to sell your houses.
Right, that's right. And so we don't want any issues moving forward, and so we certainly are for public interest and for, what's in the ground underneath our homes, so we make sure we study those very heavily.
Okay.
And then just one other quick question I had was in regards to, and kind of with what he was saying, the lake, sedimentation, building, disturbing their lake. What are your measures for that?
I mean, if it's something where we need to sit down with them and ensure them, we're certainly open to be an open book, providing whatever studies that we have in terms of that lake and showing them, hey, this is what we're doing with the waters that will be leaving our site and how it may or may not affect your lake.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to close the public hearing again. And so any comments or questions from council? Seeing no comments or questions from council. All right, now I'll take a motion regarding the acceptance of the planning commission report.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, now I'm going to take a motion on this matter of annexation.
Well, I make a motion to annex, but before we do that, I want to make sure that we understand that, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, where staff has suggested certain conditions, that the builder, Lennar, has already indicated that he's taking all rental, any possibility of a rental properties from down to 20% to 10. You did say that, correct? So am I ahead of myself, or? So
So you're making the motion at this point?
It's still stated as 20% in the actual ordinance.
Still
Is that correct,
says
Mr. Sears?
20%, but we
We'll have
need
to
it.
edit that.
All right, got it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, any discussion? And I do have one comment I want to make. I think the property to the north is wholly inadequately addressed in all of this, just 6, and, who knows what's going to end up there. And I
Talking
know
about
Lennar.
across the road, you talking about?
Correct, yeah. I know Lennar is addressing strictly the southern part, but because this is a package deal, the northern part there, I just don't feel comfortable with them, just a blanket 6 homes, but anyways, that's just my 2 thoughts on that. Any other comments? All right, at this point, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
A nay.
Clarify that, please.
Pardon?
Clarify that for us,
All right,
please.
so all those in favor, raise your hand. Aye. So 4, and those opposed?
Okay.
Thank you. The motion passes. All right, now I need a motion to amend the zoning map
So moved. With the same conditions, yeah.
So I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor, raise your hands, yes. And those opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. All right, that closes this item on the agenda. I'll get the mayor. And I turn the meeting back over to Mr. Mayor.
It's in
Okay, so the, excuse me, the next item on our agenda is also a public hearing. This is a rezoning request, RZ 2022-14 by George Rosenzweig on behalf of Pope and Land Enterprises, Inc., 42.20 acres located at Poplar Road for a change in conditions of zoning and amendment to the master plan for the existing MDX or mixed-use development project, consideration of ordinance. Ms. Donovan.
I am back up. So, the property was zoned MXD back in February of 2022. The plan included 350 multifamily units, 150 active adult senior units, 101 townhomes, 672,800 square feet of office space, a 140 key hotel, 75,200 square feet of retail restaurant space, 4 parking decks, and an amphitheater. So the new proposed plan that they're asking for would decrease the commercial space to 31,500 square feet, replace the amphitheater with a village green, increase the overall amount of green space, park space, increase the hotel size by 35 rooms, and replace the majority of the parking decks with surface parking. The applicant has provided a comparison of the existing and proposed conditions, which have been included in the staff report. So in reviewing those, the major changes are as follows. So the proposed plan decreases the square footage for retail and office components and increases the number of hotel rooms by 35. The amphitheater will be replaced by a village green, and 1.77 more acres of green space will be provided. The majority of the parking decks, again, have been replaced by surface parking and on-street parking. No elevations or individual buildings have been provided. Michael Clark, the city engineer, has met with the developer to discuss condition number 5. And that was one of the conditions of the DRI, requires direct access from the development of Noonan Crossing Boulevard East to, by way of Mercantile Drive. He originally felt this access only provided direct access to the hotel. However, he has since updated his memo to indicate that access through the hotel would be considered direct if an agreement is obtained by the owner of the proposed hotel, allowing traffic to traverse through the parcel to other areas of the development. And he has also commented on proposed conditions 2 and 3 by clarifying that the cost for the design and construction of the 4th leg of the roundabout will be borne by the developer, but the city will acquire right-of-way. And a copy of that updated memorandum has been provided as part of your packet. The applicant is seeking a cap of 20% of townhomes to be rental versus 10%, which was previously approved. The applicant will provide access to the future link segment, but it won't be constructing that segment. And then in terms of phasing, that has been changed to specify that no multifamily or townhomes shall receive a certificate of occupancy until 8,500 square feet of retail space and 1 green space component is actively under construction. The existing condition had percentage-based phasing that was approved as part of the development agreement. As previously mentioned, this property is bound by the existing DRI. The new development will have to meet the conditions of that DRI, even if the concept conditions are changed. So staff has again completed an assessment of each of the 8 required standards, and I'll give you a quick summary of each. Staff felt the proposed uses would be suitable in view of zoning and development of adjacent nearby properties, since the council already approved MXD for this back in February of last year, and the uses have not changed it. The greatest adverse impact on adjacent or nearby property would be additional traffic. However, the developer has provided a traffic assessment that shows actually decreases of 5,490 daily trips generated due to the reduction in office and commercial square footages. And it also shows a reduction in both AM and PM peak hours. Could it be used as currently zoned? Yes, the property could be used as currently zoned with the existing plan and previous conditions approved by council. Would the project cause an excessive or burdensome use of public facilities? The project will have impact on service provision, but again, the revised plan will create less of an impact than what was previously approved. And in addition, the service providers have indicated that they could service the previous plan, and the DRI should be able to mitigate the traffic issues that would be created. In terms of the comprehensive plan, the property, when it was approved, was outside of our jurisdiction, but should receive a mixed use on the future land use designation next time. The applicant is maintaining the MXD character, which would be consistent with the purpose and intent of the proposed zoning. Would the proposed use be supported by new or changing conditions not anticipated by the comprehensive plan? Again, the use would be consistent with what has already been approved, and there's no or new or changing conditions that have been discussed or considered since the comp plan was adopted back in 2021. Staff does feel the request shows a reasonable balance between the promotion of the public health, safety, morality, or general welfare and the right to unrestricted use of property. Again, a mixed-use development has already been approved for this site, and impact will actually be less. And in addition, all the DRI conditions will mitigate traffic issues. So in summary, staff found that the development met 7 of the 8 standards. The Planning Commission held a public hearing at their January 10th, 2023 meeting and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the rezoning request, and they had the following conditions. The project will be consistent with the concept plan, density, project data, proffered conditions, renderings, and amenities provided as part of the application. The property will be placed in the Quality Development Corridor Overlay, or QDC, district to ensure all commercial and office buildings meet overlay standards, that the elevations related to the apartment and townhome developments will be approved by the Planning Commission through the Certificate of Appropriateness process. A management entity will be created to ensure all common areas, buffers, amenities, et cetera, are maintained. The developer will be required to meet all conditions specified in the DRI notice of decision and recommended by the Director of Engineering as listed in his updated letter of January 24, 2023, and provided in this report or as otherwise agreed to by the parties, including Greta. A development agreement between the developer and the city shall be prepared to address phasing and scheduling of construction, which development agreement shall be subject to approval by the City Council prior to the issuance of any building permits. The proposed second entrance off Poplar Road must receive GDOT approval and Coweta County approval. And the wording 8,500 square feet of retail space referenced in proffered condition number 7 regarding project phasing shall be amended to state a minimum of 15,000 square feet of retail or office space, or a combination of retail and office space. And that's the report of the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Applicant, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm George Rosenzweig, 75 Jackson Street, Noonan. I'm going to walk over here and get the remote. Thanks, Ray. I represent the applicant, Pope and Land Enterprises. And as Ms. Donovan has stated, this is not a rezoning application. The property was rezoned to MXD a year ago. The issue is that the prior rezoning was so tied to a specific site plan with conditions that were tied to that site plan that when that deal didn't close, it really isn't practical for another developer to go in and do what the original developer had in mind. Pope and Land is very interested in developing this property, but they want to develop it under their own design site plan and need to have some conditions changed to go along with it. As we go through the presentation tonight, I think you'll see that as compared to what the zoning already is, this development is less dense, it has less traffic, it has less mass, it has a better design, it has more green space. They've built a number of checks and balances into this application where they'll need to come back to you on multiple occasions to approve development agreement, design guidelines, and so forth. But this is an excellent opportunity. We have a prestigious developer whose track record includes the Battery in Atlanta. They have a long history in Coweta County. They've developed carefully, one step at a time, the Bridgeport Industrial Park, south of town. They've been residents and property owners in the community at different points in time. There will be 2 speakers tonight after me. Tom Baranco, who is an officer and a partner in Pope and Land, will give you a little more information on Pope and Land, and then the plan. And then Bob Hughes, who's the planner, will come up. He has some slides, and he'll go through with you and explain about the site plan, the better massing, the better use of green space, the better pedestrian traffic flow, and so forth on this plan compared with the plan that you approved a year ago. So with that, I'll again introduce Tom Baranco with Pope and Land Enterprises.
Thank you, Mr. Oldham.
That one, I think.
Mr. Branco, how are
George.
you this evening?
Yes, excuse me, Tom Baranco with Pope and Land. Thank you, George. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to present to you tonight. We are excited about this project. George stated it well. We're Atlanta-based developers and have been for 40 years, but we've been active and invested in the community down here for over 25 years. We also have developments in about 5 other southeastern cities. The bulk of our activity is in Metro Atlanta, and the bulk of our activity for the last 2 decades is mixed-use development that looks very much like what we're going to present you tonight. Is it the arrow button?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Where do I,
There you
there we
go.
go. I'm going to actually skip. Okay, we don't even have the Pope and Land slide, so I'm not going to show you. I know I've presented as part of our application a number of our past history. What I'd like to do is introduce Bob, and I think that will be appropriate again because this is really about the plan and the changes we're requesting to make. But I'm going to reserve time both to answer your questions about our company, our intent, but also as I can sort of chime in with Bob on any questions related to the plan and the particulars of development. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, Tom. I'm Bob Hughes, a principal with HGOR in Atlanta, Georgia, 3525 Piedmont Road, Building 8, Suite 320. It's a mouthful of an address, isn't it? It's great to be here tonight. Really what I want to do with the plan is walk you through. I think as you've heard, we haven't changed that much about the project, but what we have changed is the plan. We like to say we've taken pretty much the same eggs and scrambled them, and hopefully we've come out with a little bit better omelet for everybody as we look at this. The site plan itself, this doesn't have a, is there a button to point at something on?
Yeah, the red little hash.
There's a separate pointer right here, Bob.
Okay, all right, thanks. So I think if you look at the plan, again, we've got densities that we have over here, parking counts associated with it. So everything you see here fully works. But the big part of the plan is we come into the same entrance. We have a mixed-use component, retail component up front. This one's going to down. There we go. Hotel, retail. We go into a very defined public space. We surround that with some of the multifamily offices to the right, townhomes to the upper right, and then the active adult is up to the upper left. If I click through these, again, just a comparison of units before and units afterwards. I want to get into the comparison of the 2 plans. You can see literally a little bit on the one on the right how much more green space there is. One of the things that we have done is we've taken the concept of the amphitheater and said, you know what, as an amphitheater alone, that's good for 10 events a year. If we took that and said, can we make that more of a village lawn type thing where we could have a concert, we could have concerts, we could have face painting, we could have Easter egg hunts, we could have a number of things that go on here that invite not just the community here at Popular Place, but the larger community into it. And in fact, the lawn that you see here, where there would be a stage kind of set up at the end of that,
That's equivalent to the lawn size at the Atlanta Botanical Garden where they do a summer concert series. So we know we can handle the folks in there to do that. If we go through it and we talk about block size and sort of pedestrian circulation, if you're a walker, you want smaller blocks to go around, choices of way to get things. So if you look at the amount of walkability and what it does from the original plan compared to the new plan, we've created a more walkable environment, and that's key to a community like this. Next, maybe. There we go. Just a visual comparison of the green space. Again, the amphitheater is the key here. Taking that and saying, let's use a lawn for a concert event place. It gives us a lot of land to scatter around, and within the development, that sort of core walkability is almost a complete linkage of green space that comes around the site. This is a drawing that, you know, we as planners get off on. The average person is going, was this a Rorschach test or something for you? But essentially, we like to look at what we call figure ground, the spaces and the places that were created. And you can see how these buildings form this space. These buildings address this space. These here, almost every building in this plan fronts on green space. So that becomes, again, a key factor in the proposed plan. And finally, just some images that we've kicked up early on, very generic architecturally at this point because we're focused on plan, that ability to come straight in and arrive at a place. You can see the strong relationship here between the retail, the active lawn area, the multifamily around it, hotel to the right. Looking from the north, looking south, townhouses in the middle here. Park area here where we're also proposing a dog park as part of the community. That becomes a big thing nowadays. Park that is between, there you go, that shows the dog park in relationship to the pond, and then back to the plan itself. So in essence, just to repeat myself, we've taken essentially the same eggs. We've applied them here a little differently. We think we have more green space, more usable green space, park space, more walkability, better scale to this community, and the ability to connect this all the way out to the north and connect to the Lynx Trail. So not only could people here get on the Lynx Trail to go somewhere else, somebody might get on the Lynx Trail and walk here for a cup of coffee or an ice cream cone at the retail. So with that, I'd love to answer any questions.
Any questions, Mr. Alexander?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hughes, you're going through those slides. The one in the very beginning was only up there for about a second. I couldn't copy things down. And it showed what originally was how many units, townhomes, apartments, active adult, and then what you're proposing. Could you go back to that slide, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I should have gone backwards through the whole thing. It seemed to do that better than go forward. So.
One more, forward. Nope, the other way.
Another one. There you go.
There we go.
There we go.
Active adult, 155, multifamily, 350, 350, townhomes, 101. Okay. That's what I thought. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I got a couple of questions. What about the office building heights? What are those?
The office building height.
Yes.
Right now, we're planning 4 stories maximum on the office building height.
Okay, so what's that in the feet for us? Because I know we had a cap on what we thought we were going to be, so I want to make sure that we're talking the same thing.
Sure. On our plan, we're showing 3 office buildings, a maximum total square footage of 300,000 feet, and a typical Class A office footprint is 25,000 feet. A specific user might want a 35,000 footprint for a certain kind of use, training center, et cetera. But your typical standard office footprint is 25,000 feet. So each of those 3 buildings we show on our plan are 100,000-foot buildings 4 stories tall. That's approximately, well, on this slide, it's 450,000 feet. Obviously, on the staff's report, the zoning from February last year had significantly more office. Quite frankly, our reputation and our 40-year history was always office development. And approximately 20 years ago, straight office development went away. And now almost all development includes a mixed-use component like this. So quite frankly, if we can build more office, we'll be back knocking on your door asking you and offering you to build more office. We love to build more office. We can accommodate it on the site as far as the size, our ability to do a parking deck, as we showed on that previous slide with the parking counts. So I'm not sure if that answered your question.
It didn't.
No.
I'm looking for height on the building
4
itself.
stories.
You said 4 stories, but we actually had a discussion about this when it was rezoned, and I think it was, remind me what that building height limit was, Mr. Phillips?
Well, so typical floors from deck to deck are 13 feet. So the thickness poured in place concrete, top and bottom, will give you about 13 feet. Now, we've been known to do the top floor specifically, sometimes the lower floor with a higher ceiling height. Again, we've agreed in the conditions that we'll be back to this body with design, architectural design. That would include the office buildings. And in there, we would have specifics. So the architecture itself will dictate.
So you all are asking for a variance on what we already have agreed to is the height limits for
I
these
believe the
buildings.
highway, it allows the maximum height, is it 85 feet?
Yes, it's 85 feet in the area I-85 corridor.
That's correct.
that we created for height.
Okay. I see the percentage of office and retail went down in comparison to the original proposal. So I guess one of the things that made me excited about this, the first go round, was that we were trying to create more office and retail, and had a higher percentage of that as part of the proposal. So though you didn't increase the numbers of residential product within this, you did increase the percentage of that by reducing the residential and the office. And then the parking deck. I see that there is a deck, or is that a deck, to the right-hand side of the site? I know in the 3D, in the rendering, it appears to be a deck there.
Yes, ma'am.
So, but I wanted to make sure that that wasn't an earlier version of this, and we're just, sometimes things changed in the design process, and SD is a big deal. So I wanted to make sure that that is a deck, in fact.
It is, yes, ma'am.
And how many floors is that?
That's 3 stories as it's currently shown.
Okay. Was there any thought to the placement of it right there at to the right of the site, when I know that the previous deck on the site had been to the left near the interstate as opposed to more interior to the neighboring properties? What was your thought process behind that?
Yes, I mean, as you see, we've also flipped the office from the west side to the east side. So that deck is proximate to the office from that standpoint. As a 3-story deck, we've got room in there to plant and buffer that from the adjacent property. But we felt like anything that was visible from the interstate, and you can see plenty of examples of this if you go north and drive to Atlanta, where all you see is an interstate facade, a parking deck facade from the interstate, which really doesn't present a great view out to everybody traveling by. So we felt this was a better place to tuck that in and conceal it than where it was in the previous plan.
Just another question on that. Will the parking deck, will that have any kind of facing, or is it just going to be a concrete parking deck to look at?
At this time, we haven't advanced that far. I think, as Tom said, what we've proposed here is to develop, once we get an approval, I guess, hopefully an approval to move forward, the plan changes make sense. then we could spend the time to really develop the design guidelines that would address those kind of questions and get back with a better answer for you.
Just for the sake of clarity on the parking garage, remember, per our conversation, that's, although you're showing it there, it's not really initially part of your plan up front until, if I understand our conversation prior, was that once you would have to show a rental or a need for the parking garage based upon the commercial space that you're looking to develop, businesses, et cetera. Is that still is my understanding that correct?
You are, and so, again, if you look at that plan and you see those three blue buildings that are each freestanding office buildings, is there a possibility that you have a tenant that would need 300,000 feet all in one phase? Certainly there is, and at that time you would build a parking deck. But initially, if you build one building, which is more likely the scenario, certainly in the office market we're in right now, you would build one building and you have enough land between the two other office buildings and that large parking pad, you would probably surface park it for some period of time. And so typically, this footprint, how we have it designed, enables us to not only, for instance, you could do two buildings, one with a larger footprint, combining the two that are closer together, parking deck. It gives us a lot of flexibility in this sort of office component. And that's really what you need for developing offices. You're going to adjust based on your tenant and the market is specifics as to what they need.
Sure. Thank you.
We did a project in downtown Decatur for Pope and Land called Decatur Town Center 1 office building, and then Decatur Town Center 2 that was done exactly that way. Decatur Town Center 1 had a surface parking lot. When we came to add the second office building, I went to structured parking.
Got it, yeah.
Is there enough demand signal right now for office space, commercial office space?
Unfortunately not. Again, we're office developers. We have sites currently in 5 other cities, and then we probably have 6 or 8 sites in metro Atlanta, including Midtown, Cumberland, Central Perimeter, everywhere. And I cannot, Hasco's heard this a number of times at various different forums, and it hadn't just been over the last sort of post-COVID. I mean, office is very tough, and it isn't. It's a combination of this sort of back-to-work model, but also it's so much downsizing going on and sort of the change of the demand for office, not from just individuals, but it's how they're using it. So unfortunately, there's not really, but we never give up on it. And it's an important part of this project, and we certainly hope the market changes. And again, we've got to be flexible, but the economics for building it now, just impossible to get it financed. But if you have a tenant, that's different.
So it's kind of, if you build it, they will come?
That doesn't happen anymore. Really what they call spec office space, which is speculative office development, that's really been gone for quite some time. There's a brand-new building at 14th Street in the downtown connector right now that's 350,000 feet, and it's empty. It's brand new, a year old. So it's very rare, and just, hope that changes.
Mr. Branco, if you get approval tonight, how long will it be before you come back for design approval?
We'd like to start that process very quickly. Again, the way we develop projects like this is we have a master dome over the property, and we have strict covenants that are really much stronger than even your own code enforcement, and it allows us to keep the quality up for each component of the development. So we already have we of course have the design guidelines from previous, and we've done a number of projects again that look a lot like this that we would combine with the features of your ordinance that are in place. This is a quality overlay district, and we've agreed to keep that, of course, and we think we'll supersede that in every way, really.
Thank you. Okay,
I have
the
a
applicant
question.
is, okay, they've run out of time for presentation, but if you have a question.
I have a question, yes, sir. 350 apartments, I know those are rentals, the 155 active adult. My understanding, those are rentals also?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so a total of 505. And one question for Ms. Donovan. You had said that the planning commission voted unanimously to approve it. How many were attending that meeting?
I do believe all 7 were there.
No, actually, there were 5. It was 5 to nothing.
Five.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. And when you build this out, I'm sure you'll probably do it in phases?
Yes, sir.
What's the first phase? What are you planning on?
I can't tell you that today. I don't want to promise. Again, we have to come back with architectural. That's part of the problem with the prior approval, is it required essentially to build almost all of this at once.
Right.
And it's really just not the way these projects develop.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brinkley.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. How much of this are you planning to develop yourself, or how much of this are you planning to do with partners? For instance, the other piece had several partners involved. You know, we had, what was it, John Wheelan Homes and all that was involved with the last one for the residential part, and so I want to know a little bit more about that part.
Sure, good question. We would be the master developer, so similar to all of our other projects, we actually don't do residential. We're not a residential developer. We do partner with a number of residential developers in order to execute on developments like this. We would for sure do the office. A lot of times we have to do the retail. Unfortunately, retail also doesn't have credit tenants, therefore you can't finance it. So a lot of times, we either have to pull off the retail on our own or potentially with the residential developer. But we will seek and secure a residential partner for each of the 3 components. It's possible one developer, residential, would do both the age-restricted and the market rate. Very unlikely that that same one would do townhouses as well. Typically, townhouses is going to be a different developer. But again, the way we control quality and what happens and how it happens and the all of the cooperation requirements of a development like this between ingress, egress, utilities, the covenants of use and quality, not just when you build it, but going forward. The only way to do that is to put that dome over the top of the entire development.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Last question.
I had 2 quick questions.
Last
One was-
question?
Do you have a question?
Well, it's not a
Okay.
question. Go ahead.
Mr. Kretko?
I do.
So you want to increase the number of townhomes from 10% to 20%?
Yes.
And second of all, you said you will provide access to future link segment, but will not be constructed in that segment. What do you mean by that?
Well, yeah, and that didn't really come off like we really intended it. We believe, again, that we, by showing our plan and the connectivity that we've provided, is instead of sort of just one trail that goes through our project, we're going to invite people to walk through the entire project. And so if you look at our greenscapes, and as Bob pointed out, the way we use buildings to frame these safe, inviting streetscapes, instead of just having one path per se, we envision all of that being a connection point from the north down to Poplar Road. So I believe really that the comment that Tracy made was what we disagreed with the condition as it was written in the zoning in February of last year, because the fact is, and I don't believe this has been brought up by George, surprisingly, but I'll bring it up. Unlike last year's plan, we're not asking for public money. Last year's project was truly hanging its hat on public money that would basically finance parking structures, the link, and infrastructure for the project. We're not asking for that. And so that was really the context of the link saying we wouldn't build it.
So there'd still be no connectivity over Poplar, though?
Correct.
Mr. Gion, did you have a final question?
No, I'll pass.
Okay. All right. At this point in time, we would like to invite anyone who is also in favor of the project to come forward. You'll come forward and state your name for the record, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Zach Bell, and I am a recent Newnan resident. I joined the Newnan community about a year ago, moved into Stillwood Farms, and have loved it ever since. It's been a beautiful community and a lot of great things in this community to enjoy. I am a daily commuter, so I hit the interstate right there and head north up to the airport every single day. Work for Delta and have a lot of other new people moving to the Atlanta metro area, and really struggled to attract a roommate at first. It's a little hard starting off as a brand new, fresh out of college, 23-year-old kid trying to get his roots into somewhere that he can look to make his home, his new home. And a lot of people were like, oh, you're going to move to Newnan? Like, what's in Newnan? Like, it's a city of homes, but all they have is retirement homes. And I'm like, no, it's a great place. We got the link. We got a lot of great things moving around. We got a wonderful hospital to support our infrastructure right across the street from this development. But one of the things that I encountered when I would inquire with other classmates from Auburn University, graduate of Auburn University, is that they didn't want to move to Newnan because Newnan didn't have anything to offer them. A lot of my friends were in nursing and were being offered jobs from Piedmont Newnan across the street, and they saw no reason to move to Newnan because there was nothing to do. If they were to work at Piedmont Newnan, they would commute from out of town, live somewhere else, Peachtree City that has a Lululemon. That's a big deal for college kids for some reason. Commute from Peachtree City and make their way back into Newnan and take their tax dollars elsewhere at night. I think this would be a phenomenal opportunity for the entire community to have a place where young people can go, for us to come in as young professionals, to enjoy the community and have easy access to work, especially for my friends that were in nursing that were looking for an easy place to live and commute. Right across the street, that would be quite great. I see people walking across that intersection right there every day going to Chick-fil-A, so I know we've got the walk-in thing, we got that in the works, so great way for local residents to reduce traffic. From the original plan that I saw over the summer when I first moved here, this does also reduce density, which I think was a key aspect of this new proposal. I see that, I like that. One of the big things that I also like seeing is that the developer is committing to building a roundabout at the intersection of Newnan Crossing Bypass and Stillwood Road. Every single day, that's my biggest traffic hurdle. It's not the traffic on 85, it's that traffic at that intersection. So definitely glad to see that. And the one-way exits out onto Poplar Road, I believe, would also help. I see some great things coming in here. If I were looking at starting a new business, I would choose a development like this. This is what we're seeing a lot out in Texas now. I try to keep up with things. I see several developments like this out in Texas where it's all in. You have office space, you have your rental spaces, and you have your active adult living all in one. You can really retain a community aspect to it. And also, I like for this proposal the fact that there is no more amphitheater. I think an amphitheater would put an unnecessary burden on parking for especially the hospital across the street, would also hinder any ambulances or emergency vehicles that need to get through there. So this proposal definitely has benefits as to that. Another benefit of this that I see is the hotel. Great aspect for the hospital. Long-term care, any long-term care that may need to take place at the hospital across the street. So all in, I like most aspects of this. I do have a few questions I guess I would have for the board or for the council to address. One would be police presence. This design focuses a lot more on on-street parking. We've all seen what happens in Atlanta, downtown Atlanta, especially along the interstate for on-street parking. Increases a lot of break-ins and smash and grabs, et cetera. Is there any plan for increased police presence in this area, since it is adjacent to the interstate and has such easy access?
Mr. Bell, anytime we consider growth, we consider additional police presence and public safety. It's our number one issue for keeping our public safe. I would also assume that Pope and Land and their management would have their own security force on site 24/7. Is that correct?
Yes, for each component likely, yes.
All right, thank you.
That's great to hear. That would be one of my primary considerations, so I'm definitely glad to hear that. Definitely glad to hear about the phased approach, especially with larger structures that may occur. But I think this would be of benefit to Newnan, especially for our tax dollars and our well-needing and well-deserving schools.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. We
Thank you.
appreciate you being here. Anyone else? Thank you. You'll state your name for the record, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Eric Thomas. I'm a 20-year resident of Newnan, live in Summer Grove. Just have a couple of quick comments. I am in favor of this. I do think it's an improvement over the previous plan. It seems a little more of a fitting in character. I will say that there are two comments that I have is, with all due respect to the applicant, I do think that having them provide an actual pathway for the link trail, not just accommodating by allowing their sidewalks and various pathways to serve that purpose. I think the point is the master plan for the link that the city's worked so hard on does provide for a clear pathway that's signed and marked as dedicated pathway space. I think if we lost that, that would be a detriment to the whole master plan idea. And one of the future phases goes right through here towards the hospital. So I would request that council keep that as a condition of the approval. And then I also, I have concerns about the connectivity to the Mercantile Drive over there. I think that short piece of roadway is very congested with the Chick-fil-A and Newnan Crossing Boulevard there, and I think increasing traffic there could be problematic. So other than that, I'm in favor of this.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone in opposition to this project that would like to come forward at this time? If you'll raise your hand and come forward, state your name for the record, please.
Hi there, my name is Jennifer Petrino. As y'all know from the last time the last proposal was before y'all, I was very much against that proposal. I want to say that I do think this is an improvement, certainly, over that proposal, and I think that Pope and Land is a respected company and will probably do a good job if you all vote to approve this. But I do still have some concerns. It's still 606 residential units here, 505 which will be rentals, and then if 20% of the townhomes are also rentals, that means another 20 rentals as well. As I wrote to you all in my email this morning, we are fast becoming the city of apartments and not the city of homes. And I would just like to see the other proposal that you approved tonight, for example, was residential homes on 31 acres. This is 42 acres with 606 home places for people to live. It's a lot. Everybody's saying it is less dense, and I agree. It's less dense in parking garages and office buildings, but it's the same density as far as the apartments and townhomes and senior living places go. I'm also not a fan of the big parking garage. I wasn't a fan of it last time. Thank you for asking about elevations. I noticed that wasn't really answered, and it seems like a lot of the design features, it's all, well, once you all approve it, we'll figure that stuff out later, which as a citizen makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I also have to mention the traffic to this nice gentleman here, very well spoken, I must say, brought up a lot of great points. You said you live in Stillwood. The plan says, or the traffic study says, there will be 12,000 cars coming and going from this property every day. you will never get out of your Stillwood again. I'm concerned about that traffic level. There's already a lot of traffic. This is like beating a dead horse. We say this every single time. You all know this. It's just a lot of additional cars for the 2 lanes of Poplar Road and Noonan Crossing Boulevard. And I also have a concern about some of the last bits of what the nice gentleman was saying about the offices and the retail. What are the chances that the apartments and the townhomes and the senior living places get built first? And I think it said 8,500 square feet of retail is required, but then the rest of it doesn't actually come. Then we've just got a bunch of apartments with not everything else that the other citizens of the community might be hoping for. And last, I want to mention, I would have preferred to have seen less apartments and more retail, because now it's reduced to 31,000 31,000, I think, square feet, which sounds like a lot, but when I did a little research online, that's like a Dollar General, a Panera Bread, and maybe 1 or 2 other places. So I don't know what the plans are, but Noonan has plenty of those kinds of places. We want this community, if you're ever on Facebook and people are commenting, people want a Trader Joe's, they want nicer restaurants, they want more retail, and I feel like I would have liked to have seen the plan lessen also the apartments and increase or keep the same at least retail, where we could have had a lot of nice selections for restaurants and places to shop. Overall, I do think it is an improvement, but I would still like to see additional changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition? Okay, seeing no one come forward, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. And I guess we do have a report from the Planning Commission. If we can get a motion to approve.
Make that motion.
Okay, a motion, a second, we approve and accept the report from the Planning Commission. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, a motion on the issue, if there's
I
any
have a
questions or
I do.
comments.
I got a couple of questions. If I'm remembering this correctly, we did have some sort of restrictions on the type of business, or there was some sort of proffer or something. Can y'all refresh my memory about that?
I don't know if Ms. Donovan wants to speak to it or the applicant, but they're on page 122 of your packet, those conditions. Most of those have survived the deal. I think there's a little bit of greater clarity between what is a fast casual and what's a fast food. One of the lady just spoke to Panera Bread. They called that out, ironically enough, as something that they would like to be able to attract, but use examples such as McDonald's and others as convenience stores, or fast food stores that they would not.
Right, I remember there was pretty robust, about not having,
That's right. I
drive-throughs
think
and stuff like that.
it survived the deal.
Okay, so that is still in there. All right, that's my question. And then the other is, I agree with the comment about the link coming through and being clearly labeled and as still part of our plan. So I would like to see that addressed in some meaningful way, to keep the link as part of this project. Because overall, the green space is way better. And the connectivity and all the things that you talked about with the space, but I think that it would be a really lost opportunity for us to lose the link coming through here.
Mr. Branco, could you address that, please?
Sure, we're happy to do that, and we will do that. So I think how we change that language, I'm open for a proposal. Again, there was never an intent to, put a barricade up on the north end of our property in the south end. It's just, I think our concept for the plan was more of a all connectivity, but what was mentioned and your point is well taken, and we can certainly do that.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you guys help me understand? I think I have a pretty good I know mixed-use development, the concept of it, et cetera. But can you help me understand, and those here in the public have spoken and addressed the multifamily, and then you have the retirement, and then you have the townhouses, you have that mix. Why is it important in these types of mixed-use developments to have the anchor, so to speak, of it to be the majority multifamily living versus, let's just say, for example, our conversation, that you would have 200 multifamily units and you would have possibly 300 fee simple ownership townhouses? What drives that in your market, your world, that has to be the anchor and the majority of it?
Well, I will answer that as a developer, and and Bob can chime in because he's been involved in them all over the country, but it's a proven fact that the rooftops, if you will, the number of people are what carry the day on retail and using your amenities, supporting your amenity base.
Sure.
So this green space that we're developing here and maintaining and policing and improving, it takes constant care and money. You've got to have users of it. That's a big thing. The other thing, I realize that they drew a comparison to a previous case, completely different product type. The reality is that these market rate apartments and these age-restricted rental units actually cost more to build than the single family that was in here before us. So from a tax base and an overall quality, each one of these components are institutional grade, and meaning that in order to finance them and own them, they have to have a level of quality. And of course, your ordinance is the main backstop to that no matter what. So the quality overlay district provides that as well.
Thank you. But so in your opinion, and what I'm hearing is any mixed-use development that you are part of and have been part of, the component, there must be a multifamily dwelling piece in there in order to make that successful.
That's correct. And when the banks crashed in 08 and 09, the lender rules changed. And so essentially to do condos, 50% of them have to be pre-sold before you can even finance them. So they don't qualify for HUD or FHA loans. So it's created this environment where you really have to have the multifamily. Now, luckily, again, the product is institutional grade, so the quality is high enough, and the covenants that keep them that way are what really protect it. And to me, this site, this is what it wants. If you look at the adjoining uses and the interstate connectivity, and that interchange was built for, there was a mention about traffic trips on an all-day, 24-hour cycle. I haven't checked the numbers on that, but we did provide all that information and data. Again, the infrastructure's in place. What's not, we've agreed to abide by and build at our cost as part of the DRI.
Any other questions?
I've got a couple of questions. The townhomes, just to make sure they're fee simple still?
Yes, sir.
And in this environment, why are you looking to increase the cap of rentals to 20%?
Well, again, first off, I think it's more market. Again, I heard the 10% in the previous case. I know what y'all voted on last year. In our opinion, at this specific location, again, our overreaching covenants, which require certain behaviors and certain qualities of upkeep, we envision, the gentleman mentioned nurses, this is a big location for travel nurses, and they may leave for a year or two and come back. And I just think that restricting rentals in a quality product like that to 10%, it's way less than market. I understand what y'all are trying to prevent. That's not what this project is. I just think that I think it's better to ask for that up front, because I do believe that's market, rather than have a problem pulling off that fee simple component of this development and having to come back to you later and say it's an issue. There's a lot of people that live in single family homes in the Newnan community who desire to live in a townhouse product like that, but maybe they're not quite ready. And so I can come up with a lot of reasons why we thought about that and why we asked about it.
Okay, because the 20%, that's pretty high. I liked your idea about the link, making sure that it's marked, but possibly also encouraging people to explore and go see the lake and go see all that stuff, kind of go check it out. Would there, unfortunately, the link would then end at Poplar Road, and there'd not be any connectivity over to the remaining part over with Piedmont. Is there any, have you had any discussion with Piedmont to partner with, try to figure out a means to get over or under Poplar to make that completion?
We have not, and of course, that's public right-of-way that happens to be in the auspices of GDOT and Coweta County. We're certainly willing to get in discussions on that, but it's not something we control, for sure.
All right, last question, anyone?
Activation of the public space. I know that that was part of the conversations we'd had in the last iteration of this, was having, partnerships with our downtown development, Main Street, and some other organizations, like Ashley Park and that kind of thing. Are you all still considering that type of relationship to be able to activate this space and be part of the connectivity of activities?
Absolutely. We wouldn't make this kind of investment in green spaces without an expectation that it would be activated by public use.
So do you have a specific partner in mind at this point?
No,
to do something like that, or-
I think that typically has to organically grow based on how much is there and what the use is. And I don't think again, the amphitheater was really a single-use facility, and what we've designed here is much more flexible and usable.
Okay, is there a motion on the issue?
So moved.
So moved to approve,
To approve.
as presented.
As presented.
Wait a minute, is
With
that,
offered conditions.
does that include the link and, I think that's the last one, is the link, because everything else was in the thing.
Does your motion include connectivity to the link?
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, show of hands. All those in favor, right hand. All those opposed, motion carried 4-3. Thank you. The next item on the agenda today is a request from Parks of Olmsted to put banners in neighborhood garage sale April the 9th through the 15th at their main entrances. Is there a motion?
I'll
Is
make
there a
that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is
Yep.
second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The next item is a request from second to none to close Fresh Brew Drive, March 17th through 19th, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. each day for a remote control monster truck event. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We have a need for an executive session this evening for real estate personnel and legal. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir. I move that we now enter into closed session as allowed by OCGA Section 50, Tac 14, Tac 4, and pursuant to advice by the city attorney with the purpose of discussing legal, real estate, and personnel, and that we in open session adopt a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor or presiding officer to execute an affidavit in compliance with OCGA Section 50, Tac 14, Tac 4, and that thus body ratify the actions of the council taken in closed session and confirm that the subject matters of the closed sessions were within exceptions permitted by the open meetings law.
Is there a second? Second. Motion is second. We go into executive session for legal, real estate, and personnel. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.